Hello, my friends, and welcome to week 15 of Sacred Journeys. This week I was debating between two different things, and I've chosen to sort of do something a little different and offer them both to you with a twist. The first thing I was going to discuss, and I'll lay down as the context for what I'll say next, is the importance of having a spiritual practice, or more than one spiritual practice. But a spiritual practice is something that we do faithfully, possibly daily, that is small enough and genuine enough to work for you, and is also regular enough and consistent enough that it can take us to new places, to new depths of understanding or depths of peace or depths of insight. And so spiritual practices can become kind of rote. They can become something that we do more out of habit or obligation, or let's just say we can fall asleep a little bit when we do them. And that is not in any way to point fingers or to blame or say that you're doing anything wrong. It's actually part of the whole human experience. And in many ways, there's a really important place to go through those things. You know, I remember talking to a long-time Buddhist practitioner, and she shared with me when she went to her teacher once and said, I'm just struggling with my meditation. I mean, I've been a practitioner for decades, and all of a sudden I'm fidgety and I can't do it, and I'm irritated. And she said to her teacher, what do I do? What's happened to my meditation practice? And her teacher said to her, that is your meditation practice. So I'm in no way encouraging us to just drop spiritual practices that we're doing. However, I also think that there is a time and a place to do something new and different. Often it can be done in addition to your other spiritual practice, or maybe you just want to take a pause. But there's something about freshness. There is something about new eyes that lets us experience things with the kind of openness and inquisitiveness and curiosity, and maybe even a little bit of eager anticipation or excitement about doing something that will get us through. And I find that this is often important when it's time we need to kind of break through a plateau. So that's my first invitation, is to have a spiritual practice and to try something new. I encourage you to make anything you do a spiritual practice. It could be choosing how you spend the first 5 minutes or the last 5 minutes of your day. It could be a phone call with someone you care about. It could be a walk you always take with a pet around a certain area. It could be greeting people when you first enter work in the morning or a supermarket. It could be people watching. It could be sitting and listening to the most beautiful bird song recording. My point is to take something you're already doing and reconsider it and re-experience it as a spiritual practice. It's really fun, and it opens a lot of things up. So pick something, and the thing you're resisting is probably the thing you should pick or might want to pick. And do that for a period of time, 21 days or even 5, with the awareness and the intention that it be a spiritual practice. And watch what happens. And I'm going to link it to the second tool or invitation I have for us all. And that is to ask ourselves how something is working for us. Often, I've experienced that I can get so conditioned to not even recognize that I'm making a choice with a perspective, with an action, with a way of thinking about something. And it's like it just is. And really what needs to happen is we need to pause and say to ourselves, so how is that working? Whether it is having an intention to do something that you don't do, or being really negative when you respond to something, or always looking at the fault in another person, or watching the news before you go to bed, or watch for the parts of your life that you feel discontent, that you feel, well, quite frankly, anything less than alive and loving and curious. And ask yourself, how is this working for me? And what are 3 choices that I have to do it differently? You might wonder how this is connected to being a spiritual practice. Well, I believe that understanding and owning our own choices, our own agency in our lives is one of the most important spiritual practices that we will practice. So try a different spiritual practice. Watch where you're feeling stuck, irritated, discontent, run down, and ask yourself how it's working for you. Your attitude, your habit, your way of acting, your way of thinking, and choose 3 other ways you could act, could respond, could see a situation. So fun and powerful, simple but powerful spiritual tools for this week. Try a new spiritual practice. Take the ordinary and make it sacred. And where you have discontent, ask yourself, how is that working for me? And what are 3 ways I could respond or act or do this differently? I'll close with a quote from Dalai Lama. He says, human beings will continue to deceive and overpower one another. Basically, everyone exists in the very nature of suffering. So to abuse or mistreat each other is futile. The foundation of all spiritual practice is love. That you practice this well is my only request. Human beings will continue to deceive and overpower one another. Basically, everyone exists in the very nature of suffering. So to abuse or mistreat each other is futile. The foundation of all spiritual practice is love. That you practice this well is my only request. Have a beautiful, a peaceful, and an open-minded week.